When you and I talk about business challenges, most people immediately think of external problems. They think about lack of funding, competitors with deeper pockets, an economy that feels uncertain, or a team that just can't seem to execute. But I want you to hear me on this. The real challenge is never out there. The real challenge is always in here. It begins in the mind. Because before you even touch a strategy, before you design the next campaign, before you seek the next investor, you have to conquer the battlefield within your own head. Think about it. Two entrepreneurs can face the exact same problem, say a sudden drop in revenue or a product launch that didn't go as planned. One of them collapses, goes into panic, starts doubting their abilities, and slowly spirals downward. The other looks at the same numbers, feels that same punch in the gut. But instead of giving in, they say, this is my opportunity to grow. This is my chance to get stronger. And because of that mindset, they find a way forward. Same circumstances, completely different outcomes. Why? Because the frame through which you view your challenges shapes the actions you're willing to take. See, if you believe the problem is too big, if you convince yourself that it's impossible, then your brain shuts down. You stop searching for answers. You freeze. But when you approach the exact same challenge with a different belief, when you tell yourself, there is always a way, I just need to find it, suddenly the brain switches on. You start asking new questions. You begin seeing possibilities you couldn't see before. And once your mind opens, the solutions appear. I've had countless conversations with business leaders who felt stuck. They told me about their struggles as if those struggles were permanent walls. But what I reminded them, and what I want to remind you, is that those walls aren't permanent. They're only as strong as the story you've told yourself about them. If you shift the story, you change the meaning. And if you change the meaning, you unlock new energy, new creativity, and new action. Now let me ask you, when you face a challenge, what's the first thing you say to yourself? Be honest. Do you immediately go into worry mode, thinking about everything that could go wrong? Or do you condition yourself to pause, to breathe, and to say, this may be tough, but I can handle it. I've faced worse before. I'll figure this out. That small shift in language is where breakthroughs begin, because language isn't just words. It's the programming code of the mind. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes what you believe, and what you believe determines how you act. So if you want to break through any business challenge, you have to train your mind like an athlete trains the body. You can't wait until the crisis hits to build your mindset. You have to practice it daily. It's the little rituals, the way you start your morning, the way you feed your focus, the way you talk to yourself in the quiet moments that prepare you for the storms. When the storm comes, and it will, you don't crumble because your foundation is already strong. And let's get real. No business is challenge free. If you're aiming to build something extraordinary, challenges are the price of entry. But here's the truth most people miss. Challenges are not the enemy. They are the training ground. They are the moments that shape you to the leader capable of carrying your vision forward. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without problems, there is no progress. It's how you meet those challenges that defines who you become. So when I say mindset before strategy, I mean that until you get your head and your heart aligned, no strategy in the world will stick. You can have the best marketing plan, the best technology, the best financial model, but if inside you are ruled by fear, doubt, or hesitation, you'll sabotage yourself. On the other hand, even with an imperfect strategy, if you show up with belief, with certainty, and with relentless focus, you'll find a way to win. And maybe right now you're in a place where things feel heavy. Maybe you've had setbacks that shook your confidence. Maybe part of you is even questioning if you're cut out for this. But let me tell you, every great leader, every great innovator, every person who has built something lasting has stood where you are. They faced moments of doubt. They stared down challenges that looked impossible. The difference is they chose not to let the story of defeat run their life. They chose to adopt a mindset that said, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a breakthrough. So the first step is simple, but it's not easy. Decide what mindset you're going to bring into every challenge. Decide to become the person who leans in when things get tough, who refuses to be broken, who sees possibilities when others see dead ends. Because when you master that, when your mindset is stronger than the challenge, the strategies will follow. The opportunities will reveal themselves. And that's when the breakthrough happens. When you're facing a business challenge, one of the greatest mistakes you can make is looking at the entire problem all at once. It's like standing at the base of a mountain, staring straight up at the peak and thinking, how in the world am I ever going to get up there? In that moment, your mind goes into overwhelm. You start imagining the climb as one giant leap, and of course, it feels impossible. But here's the truth. You don't scale a mountain in one jump. You take it one step, one grip, one move at a time. The same is true in business. Most people never break through because they treat challenges as massive, immovable blocks. They look at the whole thing and get paralyzed. But successful leaders, people who turn impossible problems into opportunities, they know the secret. They know how to break it down. They slice the problem into smaller, manageable parts. And by doing so, they strip away the fear. I'll tell you something powerful. Your brain loves progress. Nothing motivates the human mind like the feeling of moving forward. Even the smallest win, even the tiniest step forward, because can generate momentum. But when you keep staring at the whole problem without breaking it down, you deny yourself that momentum. You convince yourself that nothing's happening, and that's when you get stuck. Imagine you're trying to double your company's revenue. If you think about that goal as one big giant block, double the revenue, double the clients, double everything, you'll freeze. But if you ask instead, what's the very first step? What's one small lever I can pull this week that moves me closer? Now it becomes something tangible. Maybe it's improving your sales script. Maybe it's reaching out to 10 former clients who already know your work. Maybe it's testing a new offer. Suddenly the mountain doesn't feel so impossible because you're no longer focused on the summit. You're focused on the next step. And here's the beauty. Once you take that step, momentum kicks in. The brain gets a taste of progress. You say, okay, that worked. What's the next step? And the next, and the next. Before long, you're not just moving forward. You're creating a rhythm, a flow, a sense of inevitability. That's how breakthroughs are built, not in giant leaps, but in consistent steps, stacked one on top of the other. Now I want you to think about a time in your life where you achieved something big. Maybe it was building a team, landing a key client, or even something outside of business, like training for a marathon or learning a new skill. Did you get there overnight? No, you broke it down. You took it piece by piece, step by step, until what once looked impossible became inevitable. That same principle applies to every business challenge you will ever face. But there's another layer here. When you break a challenge into steps, you gain clarity, and clarity is power. Because when a problem looks too big, it's usually not the problem itself that's paralyzing you. It's the lack of clarity about where to begin. The moment you define that first step, your energy shifts. Uncertainty turns into action. Fear turns into focus. And that is the point where you regain control. Let me share something important. People overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a year if they stay consistent. If you set out to solve the entire challenge today, you'll burn out. But if you break it into consistent, meaningful actions day after day, week after week, you create exponential results. It's the compound effect of small, focused steps that leads to massive breakthroughs. And here's the truth. Sometimes the first step won't feel glamorous. Sometimes it will feel small, even insignificant. Making that extra call, having that uncomfortable conversation, or tweaking that one process. It may not look like much, but don't underestimate it. Because often it's those little steps repeated consistently that unlock the biggest transformations. There will be times when the challenge still feels heavy, even broken into parts. That's okay. What matters is that you keep asking yourself, what's the next best step I can take right now? Not tomorrow, not a month from now, right now. That question will keep you moving forward no matter how big the obstacle seems. And here's the thing, once you've trained yourself to break problems down, you'll never look at challenges the same way again. Instead of being overwhelmed, you'll become curious. You'll see challenges as puzzles, something to be solved one piece at a time. And when you approach business with that mindset, you take away the fear, you take away the paralysis, and you replace it with a sense of certainty that no matter how big the challenge, you can always handle it. So the next time you stand at the base of that mountain, don't stare at the peak and convince yourself it's impossible. Shift your focus. Ask yourself, what's my first step? And then take it, because when you do, the mountain stops being a wall and starts becoming a path. When you're facing a challenge in business, one of the most dangerous lies you can tell yourself is that you have to do it all alone. That somehow being strong means carrying the entire load on your own shoulders. But that's not strength, that's isolation. And isolation is the enemy of progress. The truth is no one achieves anything great by themselves. Every breakthrough you've ever admired, every company you look up to, every leader you've ever studied, they didn't get there alone. They leveraged resources, they tapped into networks, they built alliances, and that's exactly what you have to do when the challenges show up. I want you to think about this. You already have access to more resources than you're giving yourself credit for. But most people don't recognize the tools and connections sitting right in front of them because they're stuck in the story that says, I don't have enough. They say, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough people, I don't have enough time. But the real problem isn't lack of resources, it's lack of resourcefulness. Because resourcefulness is what unlocks everything else. If you're committed enough, if you're creative enough, you'll find a way to take whatever little you have and multiply it. You'll look at your network differently. You'll see the expertise in your circle, the technology at your fingertips, the partnerships waiting to be built. And when you do, suddenly the challenge that looked impossible begins to shrink, not because it disappeared, but because you're no longer facing it alone. There are people right now who would gladly share their experience with you if you just reached out. There are partners who could fill the gaps you're struggling with if you have the courage to pick up the phone and start the conversation. There are mentors, books, courses, communities, all designed to accelerate your growth, but they're useless if you don't tap into them. The problem is, when we get into survival mode, when we're stressed and overwhelmed, our instinct is to contract. We pull back, we close off, we stop asking. But that's the exact moment you need to expand. That's the moment you need to reach out, to open doors, to leverage everything around you. You've got to train yourself to ask, who has already solved this problem? Because the fastest way to cut years off your learning curve is to find someone who's been there before. Learn from their mistakes instead of repeating them. Borrow their strategies instead of reinventing the wheel. That one connection, that one insight could save you years of frustration. But you'll never find it if you're stuck in the mindset that you've got to figure it all out alone. And this isn't just about mentors and experts. It's also about your team. Too many leaders think they have to carry all the answers. But the truth is, your team often sees things you can't. They're closer to the front lines, closer to the customer, closer to the processes. If you empower them, if you truly listen, they'll often give you the insight you've been missing. Leverage their perspectives, leverage their creativity. Because a team that feels trusted and valued doesn't just execute. They innovate. And then there's technology. We live in a world where tools exist today that didn't even exist 5 years ago, and they can completely change the way you solve problems. Automation, AI, systems that can save you time and money, platforms that can connect you with millions of people instantly. Yet most businesses barely scratch the surface. Not because the tools aren't there, because they haven't developed the mindset to leverage them. So when the challenge shows up, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, what can I tap into right now that I haven't been using? That question alone will shift your focus from limitation to possibility. Because the truth is, the resources are everywhere. You just need to train your mind to see them and then have the courage to act on them. And remember, leverage is what transforms effort into exponential results. When you're doing everything yourself, your progress is limited by your own capacity. But when you leverage people, systems, knowledge, and technology, you multiply your power. You create momentum that no single individual could ever generate on their own. That's how challenges turn into opportunities, and opportunities turn into breakthroughs. So, the next time you find yourself stuck, I want you to pause and remember this: the answer you need might not come from you. It might come from someone you already know. It might come from a resource you haven't tapped yet. It might come from a system you haven't implemented. Don't shrink into isolation. Expand into connection. Because when you do, you stop fighting the battle alone, and you start creating the leverage that can move mountains. One of the greatest illusions in business is the idea that things will stay the same. We get comfortable with the way we've always done it, the systems we've built, the products we sell, the strategies we trust. And then suddenly, the market shifts. The ecology evolves. Customer behavior takes a new direction. And if we're not careful, what once felt like a solid foundation can become quicksand under our feet. The challenge isn't whether change is coming. It always is. The challenge is whether you resist it or adapt to it. When you resist change, you cling to the old way of doing things. You tell yourself, this has worked before. It should work now. But business doesn't care about your comfort zone. The world doesn't slow down just because you're not ready. And here's the truth: resistance doesn't stop change. It only makes you weaker when it arrives. But when you learn to adapt, when you learn to pivot, to be flexible, to embrace what's new instead of fighting it, that's when challenges turn into opportunities. Think about it. Every major disruption you've seen in business created two types of people. On one side, you had those who resisted, who fought to hold on to the past, who told themselves, this will blow over. And on the other side, you had those who leaned in. They studied the shift. They asked, how can I use this? How can I serve people better in this new reality? And while one group faded, the other group thrived. The difference wasn't the environment. It was the mindset. Adaptation isn't about abandoning who you are. It's about being committed to the outcome, not the method. The methods will always evolve. The channels, the tools, the systems, they'll change. But if you're truly committed to your mission, you'll find new ways to deliver it. That's what adaptation is: staying loyal to the vision, but flexible in the approach. Now, I want to be clear, change doesn't always feel good. In fact, most of the time it feels uncomfortable, even threatening. But discomfort is a signal. It's not a sign to run, it's a sign to pay attention. Discomfort tells you growth is available if you're willing to move through it. And if you can condition yourself to lean into that discomfort instead of resisting it, you'll discover that change isn't here to destroy you. It's here to prepare you for the next level. Here's the secret: the businesses that survive and thrive are not the ones that are the biggest or the strongest. They're the ones that are the most adaptable. Strength is important, but flexibility is what keeps you alive in a storm. If the wind shifts, you don't stand rigid and hope it passes. You adjust your sails. That's how you keep moving forward. Some of you right now are holding on to strategies, products, or habits that once brought you success but are now holding you back. The market has shifted, your customers have shifted, but you're still trying to win with yesterday's playbook. And the reason you're frustrated isn't because the opportunity is gone. It's because you're resisting the very change that would unlock your next breakthrough. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to right now that no longer serves me? What strategies, what assumptions, what habits are keeping me tied to the past? Because until you're honest about that, you can't step into the future. Adaptation requires letting go. And letting go is hard, but it's also the price of growth. The moment you choose to adapt, you reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of new opportunities. Change stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that happens for you. And in that shift, you discover resilience you didn't know you had, creativity you didn't think was possible, and strategies you never would have found if you stayed clinging to the old way. There will always be people who resist, who say, it's too much, it's too fast, I can't keep up. But you are not one of them. You are here to evolve. You are here to grow. You are here to lead in a way that doesn't just survive change, but harnesses it. And when you step into that mindset, no challenge can stop you because you'll always find a way forward. Every single one of us has faced setbacks that felt like the end of the road. That deal you thought was guaranteed suddenly falls through. That product you poured your heart into doesn't perform the way you hoped. That partnership you trusted goes sideways. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that the setback defines you, that it means you failed, that maybe you're not cut out for this. But let me tell you something that can change the way you see every challenge from this moment forward. Setbacks are not the end. Setbacks are fuel. The truth is, nothing in your business journey is wasted. Not the mistakes, not the losses, not the failures. Every single one of them is carrying a lesson, an insight, an adjustment that, if you use it, will make you stronger, sharper, and more prepared for the next level. The problem is most people don't use it. They get stuck replaying the pain, the disappointment, the frustration. They let the setback define their story. But the people who break through, the ones who build empires out of ashes, are the ones who take that pain and turn it into power. Think about it. When you look back at your life, isn't it true that your greatest growth came from your hardest seasons? When everything was easy, you didn't learn much. But when you were stretched, when you were forced to figure things out, when you had to dig deep inside yourself, that's when you discovered who you really are. That's when you grew the muscles of resilience, creativity, and strength that no book, no seminar, no easy win could have ever given you. And business is no different. Every setback you face is an invitation to grow. It's life saying, you're not ready at this level yet. There's something you need to learn, something you need to sharpen, something you need to shift. And if you embrace that, if you stop fighting the reality and start asking, what is this here to teach me? That's when the setback transforms into the fuel for your next breakthrough. I'll give you an example. When someone launches a product and it flops, most people see that as failure. They walk away defeated. But the person who grows says, wait a second. What can I learn from this? Was it the message? Was it the timing? Was it the audience? Was it the offer? They break it down, they gather the data, and they come back sharper. And 9 times out of 10, that next launch is a completely different story. Not because the world changed, but because they used the setback as fuel to improve. This is the mindset you've got to condition into yourself. Failure is not final. Failure is feedback. It's the universe giving you real time information about what's working and what's not. And if you adopt that frame, if you train yourself to see every setback as feedback, then you'll never truly fail. You'll either win or you'll learn. And if you keep learning, eventually you'll win bigger than you ever imagined. But here's the catch. You can't just intellectually understand this. You've got to feel it, live it, condition it. Because in the heat of the moment, when you lose the deal, when the numbers tank, when the investor says no, your emotions will want to take over. You want to shut down, pull back, maybe even quit. That's the moment you've got to interrupt the pattern. That's the moment you remind yourself, this is not the end. This is few. I will use this. And when you do that enough times, you build a habit. You build an unshakable mindset that turns every setback into momentum. And here's something else. You're not just doing this for you. You're doing it for the people watching you. Your team, your partners, your family, they're looking at how you respond when things go wrong. If you crumble, they'll lose faith. But if you rise, if you show them that setbacks don't define you, that you use them to get stronger, you inspire them to do the same. That's how leaders are made. Not in the easy times, but in the setbacks. So the next time you get knocked down, and you will, don't waste a single ounce of that experience. Don't drown in the story of failure. Extract the lesson. Use the pain. Let it fuel your drive, your hunger, your creativity. Because when you adopt that mindset, no setback can ever stop you. Every loss becomes a stepping stone. Every failure becomes feedback. Every breakdown becomes the seed of a breakthrough.